maskaxdii dunidu malaasan mawjadaheeda kala miirtay ee macnaysay maarkii qarsoona.
Okay, welcome back. Bismillah. Language practice. This is we're still in Unit 4. This is a skill, a lesson which we are going to study under grammar, language practice. These are the objectives. Use whereas, while, many, much, a lot to complete given sentences. So by the end of this lesson, the student, the learner, should be able to achieve this objective, should be able to use whereas, while, many, much, a lot of to complete given sentences. Now, how do we go about it? This is the methodology. The methodology: ask learners or let learners see, let them see how present participle is used to link verb and object without necessarily using conjunction. As we have earlier talked about, we want to link, we join sentences using conjunctions. Now we want students to use or to link or join sentences without using conjunctions. Let them see. Let them discuss. Example, you can kickstart by giving this example. And as you can see, it's related to what they have already read, so they are familiar with the concept. Bank. The bank works for Muhammad. The bank works for Muhammad. He appreciates the work. These are two sentences, two simple sentences. The bank works for Muhammad, one sentence. He appreciates the work, another sentence. Now, we want the students to join these two sentences without using conjunctions. So, we can say, Mr. Muhammad appreciates the bank. He appreciates the bank working for him. We have not changed the meaning of these two sentences. The bank works for Muhammad. He appreciates the work. There were two sentences with two different meanings. We have joined both the meaning and made it into one sentence. Muhammad appreciates the bank working for him. You see? So, appreciates is the present participle of the verb appreciate. Let the students see. Let them see how this is done. The bank working for him, object. Here, now the student has joined two sentences without using coordinating conjunctions, using the participle of the verb appreciate. Let learners recall on and discuss the function of comparative adjectives. We are going to study in this language practice something about adjectives. And adjectives as part of speech is not a concept which is new to students, because they did it in primary and other grammar lessons they have studied. So we are focusing right now on comparative adjectives. What is the function of comparative adjective? Ask the learners, ask them, what do they do? Yeah? What are adjectives? You can begin by asking, what are adjectives? Adjectives are words, blah, 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 blah. What are comparative adjectives? If I want to compare two things, as the name suggests, comparative. Discuss on subject predicate. Recall. When you want to students achieve this language practice, give them a recall. Take them back to the subject predicate. What's a subject? A noun that does an action, the doer of the action. What's a predicate? Whatever comes after the noun. The object, sometimes without object. Let them discuss. Tell learners to practice making as many sentences as they can from the table on the student book. For example, this example is in the book. So let them make as many sentences as they can from the table on the student book to develop that language practice skill and to make the recall. And after discussing and reading more on comparative adjectives, on comparative adjectives. Example, the more money I spend, the less I have in the bank. The more money I spend, the less I have in the bank. So there are sentences that are broken in the table. It is their role to fill, to make it a complete sentence. Ask learners to carefully study the use of while and whereas, because this is sometimes confused. So ask them to carefully study when do we use whereas and when do we use while. For example, whereas and distinguishing the usage. They should distinguish the usage between whereas and while. Example, we use while to show that something is or was happening during the time another thing is or was happening. We use while to show that something is or was happening while another thing was or was happening. For example, he got a headache while he was driving to work. He got a headache while he was going to work. So you can see one thing was happening while another thing was happening at the same time. For example, what was happening here? Somebody was going to work. Going, happening. Headache was again happening. So he was going to work and at the same time developing a headache. Something is or was happening while another thing was happening. He got a headache while he was driving to work. We use whereas to contrast two statements. This is after they have discussed, after students have discussed, after they have constructed as many sentences as they can, after you have checked their feedback, you have seen their responses, now you want to make corrections. Let them open the book, read the examples, and give them as many examples as you can. As the teacher, we use whereas to contrast two statements. For example, Saeed works in a factory, whereas Hassan works in a bank. Contrast. One is working in a bank, another one is working in a factory. We use whereas to show contrast. Then assessment. Since we have said they should write as many sentences as they can, classwork. Yeah? sentence completion exercise. For example, you can break like here, the more money I spend, the less I have in the bank. The more money I spend, dash. It was a student to fill. Completion exercise. Written exercise. This should be classwork. They should do it in class. The class activity. This is on the book, unit 4. There is a class activity. Let them do the class activity to assess if this has been achieved. Now we are still on the recall. We're still on the recall parts of speech. We have discussed comparative adjectives, while, whereas. Now, discussion. Tell learners to discuss about types of nouns. Still we're in the grammar, remember? Language practice, which is coming under grammar. So, tell learners to discuss about types of nouns that they have learned so far. How many types of nouns do you know? Ask learners. Let them discuss. Let them tell you as many as they can, as they know. And let them use the nouns with many, much, a lot of, to construct sentences. Ask them, when will I use many? For example, when they give you nouns, name of place, name of things. If student is a noun, teacher is a noun, desk, noun. Which word will I use if I want to quantify? If I want to talk about the number of students in the class, which one will I use? Will I say how much students are in the class? Will I say how many students are in the class? Or how will I quantify? If I want to say will I say there are a lot of students in this class, or there are many students in this class, and so on. Let them use the nouns with many, much, a lot of, to construct sentences. Give them time. Let them construct sentences using nouns of their choice, but using with these quantifiers to construct sentences. Then discussion. Again, let them discuss on count and non-count nouns. Those nouns that we can count and those we cannot count. Let learners practice use of many, much, a lot of. Because here, which noun will we use with count nouns? Those nouns that we can count. Will we use many? Will we use much? Which are the nouns that we... Let them list count nouns, non-count nouns. These are non-count nouns, these are count nouns. Water, salt, milk, boy, girl, car. There are those ones we can count, there are those we cannot count. Which one will I use with? Will I say a lot of salt or many salt, for example? Let them discuss. We use much with uncountable nouns and many with countable nouns. Before we come here, already students have discussed, they have listed the nouns, they have seen which one are countable, which one are not countable in their discussion. Now, for you as a teacher now, you want to make now the conclusion, you want to give the final verdict. Let them write down or understand this, that we use much with uncountable nouns. There is much salt in the food. There is much salt, sugar in the tea. There are many students in the class. For countable nouns, many. We use much with uncountable nouns and many with countable nouns. Many books We have many books here, many chairs, those that we can count. Those we cannot count, much. We can use a lot of before countable and uncountable nouns. So exception. Grammar always this exception. A lot of you can use for both. A lot of books, a lot of people. A lot of men, a lot of girls, a lot of both countable and uncountable nouns. So when they have discussed and written their sentences, how am I going to assess oral questions? Okay, who has written sentences? By show of hand, tell me. Which one have you used? Many. Which noun have you used? Read your sentence. The student reads their sentence. Compare their work. Those who have missed, those who have got it, those who have got some, missed some, then make corrections and give them the notes that this is how it is done. Much is used with uncountable nouns, many is used with countable nouns, and a lot of is used with both countable and uncountable nouns. The way they respond, sometimes a student is not sure. He can guess. Through observation, you can understand if this student, you pose the question back to him. If you check the student's facial expression, he says, teacher, many students. Another one says, many students. You might suspect this teacher, this student is not confident, or maybe he's not sure of the answer. So what do? Ask him, are you sure? Are you sure, Mohammed? If he's sure, he will definitely say. That's why it's good to always, oral questions and observations are very good to assess class activities. So don't take it light. Always the objective assessment methodology. These things are the same, two sides of the same coin. They go together. They help you a lot. Written exercise, always we have written exercise at the last. The student they have discussed, they have interacted, they have learned from one another. You have helped them do that. Now, individual assessment, written exercise. In your notebook exercise books, do that exercise. You can bring exercise related to this from outside, or give them the exercise in the book, or supplement and give both. Then we have still under language practice. When we are practicing language, grammar and usage, pronunciation, negotiation skills. There are so many things that come under language practice. Here we are now discussing about pronunciation. Pronunciation is very important in the learning of English language, especially for non-native speakers, people whose English is not their mother tongue like us. Because of influence of our mother tongue, sometimes we mispronounce words and our communication is often hindered.
kala mirtay ee macnaysay markii qarsoon